Hi, folks. I am here, sadly, remotely. I very much wanted to be with the History Matters community and everyone else who is watching this today. I guess I'm talking about Friday, September 19th. And an emergency situation has come up, and I cannot be there with you. But I didn't want to miss this opportunity to say something that I think, particularly right now, particularly this week, needs to be said. And I'm sure I will want to revisit this at more length, possibly a week from now. But it's important, I think, to say right now and for people to think about right now. And what I have to say is actually, surprise, bound up with history. There is a moment in our past that I think speaks very loudly to the present. And I want to talk about that moment. And what I want to talk about is 1798. The end of the 1790s, when the Federalists, I hate to call them a party because I don't think they really were, but basically the Federalist Alliance or party, known sometimes as the particular friends of Mr. Hamilton, were in power. They had been in power through the 1790s, but as we're moving into the late 1790s, it's becoming clear that they may not have permanent, forever power, that the American public actually is listening to and hearing some of what the particular friends of Mr. Jefferson, the Republicans, are saying. The Republicans were more comfortable with what we now see as democracy, with an engaged populace on an ongoing basis. The Federalists were less comfortable with that, and part of what is happening in the late 1790s is that it's becoming apparent that things are seemingly drifting potentially in a more democratic direction, and the Federalists are feeling a little put out, a little nervous. There's rising opposition in a way they haven't seen before, and then comes a situation, a not quite war with France, which comes to be called appropriately enough the Quasi-War with France. It's never a fully declared war. However, the Republicans are friendly towards France. They support France. They cheer what they see as the spark of liberty rising in France. The Federalists do not like any of that. They don't like what they see as social chaos in France. They don't like the idea that that spark of liberty is going to spread to American shores. So when there's a quasi-war with France, the Federalists do things that on the one hand they can say they're doing for purposes of national security during a time of quasi-war, but they can also, and not say so publicly, but very sort of openly amongst themselves, know that what they're doing that seems to be for national security is actually really going to help them politically and help them quash their opponents. This is the period when you get the Alien and Sedition Acts. 1798. So the Federalists say it's a moment of danger, and the French, who knows what they're doing, and we're involved in an almost war with them, and we're not a very strong country yet, and our national government is only 5, 6, 7, 8 years old. It's weak. So we need to do things to protect it in a time of war-ish, right? That we need to protect ourselves because the people don't necessarily appreciate or understand the authority of this new government. So what do the Federalists do? Alien and Sedition Acts. The Alien Acts, there's the Alien Friends Act and the Alien Enemies Act, but they both do essentially the same thing. They say that the president can deport enemies from the country, foreign enemies, right? People who seemingly are dangerous to the nation without due process. Hey, look, we're in an almost war with France, and here are French people. We need to be able to just send them out of the country, get rid of them. Instant deportation. Okay, number one thing. Number two thing, the Sedition Act. The Sedition Act says that it is a crime to say anything, and I'm going to read the precise words, to say anything false, scandalous or malicious writing. So it is against the publishing of false, scandalous, or malicious writing against the government of the United States. It comes to be seen as something that goes beyond writing, but one way or another, the Sedition Act is attacking people who are saying negative things about the government or national office holders. It says that you are not allowed to do that, and if you do that, you might be fined, you might be imprisoned for saying negative things about the government. Now again, the Federalists claim that this is because at a time of war, or perhaps war, the public needs to respect the government, and the government's so new that there might not be a reason why the public does respect the government, so this is national security. But what they also say in their conversations with each other is, this will silence the Republican press. Republican newspapers, we're going to put them all down. They're not going to be able to say anything negative about us, so the people will not be reading negative things about us. This is excellent. We're pretending to be protecting the nation, but what we're really doing is attacking our political enemies who are really good at connecting with and appealing to the people. So this is 1798. So what happens as a result of this? Well, it is obviously a repressive moment. The American people can see that this is a repressive moment. They sense this. And obviously, 2 years away, we have the presidential election of 1800 coming. I've talked about the presidential election of 1800 a lot of times on History Matters. What I want to say briefly today is that coming after this period of suppression and repression matters. Because people respond against things like the Alien and Sedition Acts. And although the Federalists have some power, and although there are certainly Federalists out among the populace, it's not as though every American out of government is a Republican, even so, it is very clear, and you can see this in the initial result of the election, that generally speaking, the American people are not fans of what the Federalists are doing. You end up in that election with a tie between the seeming vice presidential and presidential candidates of the Republican Party. So both Federalist candidates, the seeming presidential and vice presidential candidates, they come in third and fourth. So in the way that elections worked at this point, whoever gets the most electoral votes is president, and whoever gets the second most is vice president. So you have Jefferson and Burr tied. So clearly the American people say, yeah, okay, interesting, Alien and Sedition Acts, not big fans. They vote for the Republicans. And in the end, although the Federalists fight back, they actually threaten to seize control of the election and prevent a Republican from being elected president. Imagine that, a party trying to affect an election. Shocking. There are people who are arming themselves, states that are arming themselves, perhaps to take the government for Jefferson if necessary, but still, I've talked about all the ways in which the election of 1800 is fraught. But the point I want to make now is that election was a sort of referendum on what the Federalists were doing in repressing and censoring and silencing and deporting people they didn't like. People who said negative things about them. And the American people, largely speaking, could see that for what it was. And they acted against it. They went to the streets and protested against it. They petitioned against it. They supported candidates who were against it. They spoke out, they spoke up, they acted, and they threw that party out. Now, we are in a moment where obviously there's some silencing and censoring going on to an ever-increasing degree. It's really obvious right now what is happening. I tell this story from history because the plot line of the story is that first you get attempts to silence people that the government doesn't like, and then you get the American people seeing that for what it is, and in any number of ways pushing back. That's where we are now. We need to understand and see, and I think as of this week, it's hard to not see precisely what's going on right now as far as voices being silenced for saying things that are remotely critical in some way or another. We can see what's happening now. We need to be aware of that. We need to be aware of why that's happening. We need to be aware of the actual real justification for it, that there's a political purpose for it, and that motive matters. And we need now to focus on the fact that this is happening. It's happening to silence opponents, to silence opposition, using the force of government to do that. That is where we are now. And it's possible to come together, to join with each other, to speak out about what we're seeing happening, to push back in whatever way we can. Basically, to not simply allow this to drift by without at least calling it out for what it is. I, as ever, can't predict what's going to happen, and I do not have the perfect bit of wisdom to give you as to what we should be doing now, but at a bare minimum, we should be calling out what we're seeing and calling out the reason for what we're seeing, which is, again, I'm going to go back to 1798. In 1798, they pretended it was about national security. It wasn't. It was about promoting the Federalists and silencing the Republicans. Bear history in mind. History does not repeat. History echoes, but it definitely teaches. And we need to be listening to the lessons of history right now. Okay. I'm going to stop. I have no idea how long I've been talking. Again, I'm very sorry that I can't be there speaking with you Friday morning, the 19th of September. I would really, really love to be there, and you can hear it by listening to the passion in my voice. I have things to say. My apologies for not being there, but please do think about what I've said, and I will be back next Friday with a lot more to say. I actually did this normally. I have a mug that relates to what I'm talking about, and I didn't do that at all. I have nothing. I have no drinking receptacle in front of me, so I'm stuck. Oh, wait a minute. I can come up with something. Let me do this while you humor me. Let's see if I can do this really fast. Okay. Let's do this. Okay. Humor me, folks. It's a blank slate mug. Why? Because we're writing our own history right now. We are our own best friends right now. We need to come up with the words that will be printed on that mug and that will be helpful to us in this moment. Okay, folks, thank you for beaming in. If you think this would be helpful for other people, please tell them to come and listen to this and then think about what it's saying, this brief conversation I've had today. And I will see you in a week's time. Okay, folks.